You're listening to
Path of the Jedi.
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this tired but fulfilled adventure. That's right, tired but fulfilled. I know it doesn't make much sense at this point, but I will explain, as I always do every week. Now, you might be noticing today's episode or this week's episode is late. It's much later than normal. Usually we release these episodes on Wednesday, but this week it's Thursday, and it might even be late Thursday by the time I get this episode out. And it's because I've been so crazy busy. I know I've talked about how busy I've been a lot lately on the show. I did pretty much I start off every show for the last couple of weeks talking about the workload that I have, and what this week was exactly that, right? And not to make any excuses, but it was a big week for me. I was launching, well, I had launched and taught my very first masterclass, the Influencer Masterclass, and it took most of my attention and energy. You know, I was pouring a lot into it. So and as a result, some of the other things that I have on my to-do list kind of fell by the wayside, or at the very least, it just kind of got pushed back a little bit. There was no way I was going to be able to do this. The class itself was live. They're about an hour and a half each, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and those are actually big content recording days for me. And that's when I record this particular show, Path of the Jedi. And so I just wasn't able to get to it. It is what it is. So. Tired and kind of burning the candle at both ends with everything I got going on, but absolutely fulfilled. The class couldn't have gone any better. I couldn't have asked for a better response. There was a tremendous amount of response, even just from the numbers of registrants, right? The number of people that were really curious and interested in the topic that I was teaching, Influencer Masterclass, right? Talking about what it means to be an influencer, what it means to be a content creator in the modern age. And so, very, very fulfilled, really, really happy with this first go at teaching a masterclass. And it's just, I know the first step, but it's so exciting and fulfilling because now that I have this under my belt, that was the biggest barrier, right? Like, not really a barrier, but that level of unknown, because I'm moving into new territory in my career. Now that I've knocked that door down, it's wide open. I'm off to the races. So very, very fulfilled, even though, again, burning the candle at both ends and very tired. So that's kind of actually leads into what I wanted to talk about today on today's episode, taking breaks and resting, right? I have a tendency to push and go pretty hard when it comes to going after my goals. I've just always operated that way, and it's I don't know, maybe it's gotten worse and worse as the years have progressed. However, I have also learned to balance that, right? And not that balance really is a real thing when it comes to especially undertaking new goals and new outcomes that you want to achieve. But balancing the effort with also making sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you are getting enough rest, right? So tired but fulfilled. I also then need to make sure that I'm taking breaks, and I'm going to tie this into Star Wars. Trust me. I actually had the idea that since I'm in between shows, right? Mandalorian came out this week. I can't talk about Mandalorian because obviously our episodes are released on Wednesdays, and I can't talk about the episodes themselves as they're releasing, or else I'd have to watch them at midnight, record, and then release the episode that same day. Not going to do that. I'm already stretched pretty thin as it is. So I'm going to actually hold off on talking about The Mandalorian for a couple of weeks, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about The Bad Batch Season 2, at least, pick some of the episodes from The Bad Batch Season 2, because it's such a good show. I absolutely love this show, and this particular season, I think, has I love the kind of individual one-off storylines that it's doing, and honestly, I have to go back and watch season one to see whether or not they did that. I know they did that a little bit in season one, though. For me, felt more like a through line throughout the season, and then not that this season doesn't have that, but it definitely has its little individual adventures episode to episode. So I find that very cool. In a streaming world, streaming content, I find that more and more television shows are really just like they come across as more as one long movie broken up into little pieces as opposed to individual episodes. And so I really love that about this season of the Mandalorian, not the Mandalorian, sorry, of the Bad Batch. It kind of feels a little bit more like an old school actual TV show. At least the TV shows that I grew up with. So yeah, we're gonna do that for the next handful of weeks, and then once we have enough episodes of the Mandalorian, the latest season, under the out and released, then I'll start diving into the Mandalorian. Also too, because of the sheer amount of time it takes to uh, consume the actual source material, right? Like I have to sit down and watch the stuff, analyze it. So that's another another strain on my busy schedule. Anyways, not to complain about it. Again, I'm tired, but I'm happy. Which honestly, now that I think about it, sounds like an Alanis Morissette song. For those of you who know Alanis Morissette. Okay, getting to it. The first episode in season two of the Bad Batch. I love, again, I love how it opens up, and I'm not going to get too deep into the episode itself. It's called The Spoils of War. But I just want to touch on like the first 15 minutes. It feels like very much like an adventure movie. I kind of get this Indiana Jones feeling from it. Well, because Indy's always running away from things, right? Like he's always in trouble and he's always running away. And actually, Harrison Ford is the same way. Like it's not just Indiana Jones. Han Solo is always running away. Like there's always that clip of him running away from the stormtroopers, and I think they purposely did that for both of those characters because of Harrison. Anyways, the beginning of this first episode of season two of the Bad Batch felt very much like that, right? And it's nice. It's kind of lighthearted. It wasn't really, it wasn't pertinent to anything. It was just the way they were kicking off the season, and to bring us back to, just understanding what are the guys, what has this crew been up to. And so they're on a mission. They're I can't even remember what it is they're picking up, or they're on the mission for. But they're being chased by these giant crab creatures, right? They're on this like beach, and we have Tech and Omega are keeping watch, and are at the ship, right? They've stayed back. They're at the ship. Omega is doing her study. She's supposed to be studying, right? Homeschooling, which is good. I'm glad they put that in. They're actually, they're actually making sure that she gets an education, and that she's studying, and that she's learning, and that she has somewhat of at least a piece of a semblance of what it means to be a kid, right? What it means to be a kid growing up. School is part of it. Education is part of it, right? And so Tech and Omega are at the ship studying, and of course, I'm going to have a brain fart. The other two, or the other three, yeah, it's three of them. I'm going to sound like the worst Star Wars fan right now. I didn't take notes, and my brain is so fried I can't think of their names. But the other three guys were running away from the giant crabs and needed rescuing, and at some point Tech is flying the ship, and Omega is hanging off a cable from the ship as they're flying to the rescue, and so. And they were like, "What? Why is Omega hanging from the ship?" And Tech's like, "Oh, well, we're taking an unscheduled study break." Right? That's where the story was getting to, even though I told it very poorly. We're taking an unscheduled study break. So important, so important. And that's what led me to this idea of, well, we need to take breaks. Right? Omega herself, I mean, she's been thrust into this world of doing missions and fighting for a cause, and like I love again that they're making sure that she gets some semblance of a normal normal's not really the right word, but some semblance of what it means to be a kid growing up, and part of that is taking breaks, right? Taking breaks, and also in the sense that it can't always be mission for her, right? It can't always be fighting bad guys and putting ourselves in danger, right. You like if you do that, you just you run the risk of her not knowing what normal is, and not having, again, for lack of a better word, balance, and being grounded. And it also can really be a test on her resilience, right? And I know kids are naturally very resilient anyways, but to continually expose them to stressful environments, I think, it does more damage than good in the long term. So not having these kind of respites and these little breaks, we see them, studying and just having a quote unquote normal day, on the ship while the others are on the mission. It's really important. It's really important. So that's one aspect of break. Now, the other aspect of break that I want to talk about is that, again, talking specifically of my own experience right now, and generally how I operate, I definitely push myself pretty hard, right? And if you listen to this, there's chances are there that you're working on something, that's requiring you to push yourself kind of a little bit past your perceived limits, right? I'm always challenging myself that way, and I do have a tendency to push pretty hard and to work pretty hard, and that can be really dangerous, right? That can be really dangerous. So it's important to take a break, not to always be revving and going and redlining, because that's a formula for burnout, right? So I always like to temper my effort level and the amount of work that I allow myself to push myself into, with breaks, right? Like taking a night off. The other night, after the first day of the master class, they're actually, okay, I need a break. We've got the first day of the master class, the first session, out of the way. Let's just take a breather, because if we don't, we'll lose sight of things, right? So my sister and I went into town. And there's this one bar that we found recently. I like to go hang out, have a cocktail or two as a way to take a break and take a respite and decompress. But this bar has video games. Either you can play video game consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, things like that at the booths, or they have old school video games that you can play for free also. Like they have Rampage, one of my favorites, and they also have what do we play the other day? It was the Simpsons game. I love that game. Absolutely hilarious game. So it's just like lighthearted, mindless fun, to kind of decompress and to take a breather, and snap yourself out of kind of this high level of grinding and pushing, right? Just like with Omega, always being exposed to stressful environments. When you're pushing, when you're constantly working, grinding, that's a stressful environment as well. And so you can't redline all the time. And that's why, I'm not really one for the hustle culture. Oh, you gotta hustle. You gotta bring in that bread, or whatever the saying is. I don't know how kids talk these days. That sounded really bad. But that hustle culture, right? It's not really. I mean, I think largely, honestly, it's fake. It's people wanting to floss. However, the perception is that you gotta, in order to have what I have, you gotta grind, and it's just nonstop hustling, right? Yeah, that's not healthy. That's not healthy. Also, buying into that equation of that's what success looks like is also unhealthy. But that's a topic for another episode. Today, it's really about just taking a break, making sure that you're giving yourself enough time, outside of the grind and the hustle and the work that you're doing right now, and taking enough pause. One of the things I realized after I finished the master class, a 3-day master class, at the end of the third day, I was like, okay, I caught myself wanting to move on to the next project, because I have a lot of projects in line, and that's why this week's Path of the Jedi is late, because I was thinking about all the other projects that I have that I have to really start getting off the ground. But I realized, okay, I need to stop. I need to take a break. take a pause and breathe and enjoy the moment. Relish what I just accomplished. Relish what I just finished. Right? Take at least enough time to celebrate and celebrate that win. Number one, celebrating the win will actually allow you to it helps build your self-confidence, right? Because if you're not integrating the success, if you're not integrating the win, then you're just kind of chasing the next outcome, chasing the next goal, chasing and chasing and chasing. So you want to integrate the win. What that also does, it allows you to pause, it allows you to breathe, and it recenters you back in the moment, right? I caught myself just chasing this next thing. As soon as I got done with the masterclass this past Wednesday, I was chasing the next thing. Okay, this is the next thing on that's immediately in front of me on my to-do list, and I felt myself. I realized that I was pulling myself continually out of the moment. Right, continually just pulling myself forward to the next, and again chasing the next outcome. The moment's all we have, right? The right now, the here and now. And so I had to really, okay, hold on, Ronnie, take a breath, pause, remember where you are, remember this is all that there is, and enjoy and bask in the moment, right? So I want you to understand that it's easy to get caught up in the frenetic pace of life in the modern world. But don't forget to always check in, recenter, be mindful, and remember that the moment is all we have, right? And so that's why I said, okay, yeah, tired but fulfilled, right? I allowed myself that space. I allowed myself that break. Now the last piece of break, or the last aspect of the word taking a break, that I want to talk about today is exactly what Omega and Tech inadvertently were doing. They were taking an unscheduled study break. Through the course, and this is more short, your short-term time frames. Through the course of your workday, if you're grinding it out for like 9 hours, 10 hours straight, your productivity is actually going to decline over time, very dramatically, as a matter of fact, after the first hour. So what you want to do is, you want to take a break. Right, 5 to 10 minute break, deep breathing, recentering yourself, standing up, especially standing up and walking around. For those of you who work at a desk and are kind of sitting down at your job or at whatever it is that you're working on, you want to get up, you want to move, no matter how productive you're being. And this is where I kind of fall into needing to be strict on myself of actually taking a break. If I'm feeling really productive, I'm just going to plow forward. But no matter how productive and how much flow state you're in, make sure to have the discipline to stand up, take a break, deep breaths, walk around, get the blood flowing again, and you'll be able to tap back into that flow state if you sit down. However, if you just keep trucking forward nonstop without a break, well, first of all, you'll probably dehydrate because that's the last thing we think about when we're working. But second of all, that state of flow, that productivity, it burns out quicker, right? So by taking a break, you'll actually be able to kind of come in refreshed and tap back into that state of flow and actually extend it, right? Actually extend it. So yeah, and again, it's as simple as standing up, walking around, going outside and taking 5 minutes of deep breath work. Definitely drink some water. There's lots of really, it's just, yeah. I always hydrate anyways, but like I know that there's a lot of people in the world that need to be reminded that they should hydrate. So, take a break and drink water. There's also there's some tapping methods that I'm starting to really look into that people are raving about in the personal development space to kind of tap into your meridian points on your body, your energetic points to get the energy moving again. But again, the main thing is make sure you take a break. Make sure you take a break. In a single work day, it's really, really important, and it'll actually improve your productivity. All around, right? All around. So, I mean, that's the conversation for today. It's going to be short. It's going to be sweet. And I just really wanted to just make sure I get in here. And these are actual practical personal development and peak performance principles, right? And it all came from watching the first episode of the Bad Batch, right? The Bad Batch with Tech and Omega swinging from the ship off a cable, taking an unscheduled study break. All right. Hope that helps. Of course, I can't forget this week's shout out. Even though this is a kind of a stunted episode, I'm not going to finish without doing a shout out. So this week's shout out goes to a good friend of mine by the name of Troy Chirpic. Yeah, I want to make sure I got that right. Chirpic. Troy Chirpic. No, he's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a bunch of years now. He's part of the same company that I'm in, the network marketing company called Yoli. And I just wanted to give him a shout out because he's really, Troy was kind of like me early in my career, very shy, very introverted, just kind of I like to, and I still like to do this. I like to sit in the back of the room and be anonymous and just kind of observe the world and the people around me. I knew that I had to kind of break out of that, even though that's my tendency and I love it and I embrace who I am. I had to break out of that to, if I wanted to realistically build a business for myself. And so I see Troy doing the same thing, and especially lately in the last 12 months, 24 months, he's really stepping outside of his own perceived limitations, right? His own comfort zone, and he's doing it in a big way, right? He's making so much progress, and he's making so many new discoveries. And it's not progress with any kind of measure, good or bad, right or wrong, towards what I think is progress, but it's really, I see him with a desire to create certain outcomes, and he's pushing himself outside of his the things that he had held on to as his limitations. And that's so important, because the limitations that we have are really the limitations that we allow ourselves to have, right? We're limited by the limitations of our thinking and our thought patterns. And so watching Troy break out of that, I couldn't be more proud. I couldn't be more ecstatic, because I know that as a result, not only is he moving closer and closer towards his goals and the outcomes that he wants to create, but he's actually more fulfilled and more happy. You see him really starting to light up, and just have this kind of glow and energy about him, because he's stepping into his true self, right? His true nature. Again, yes, we're both shy, we're both introverted, but the human connection part of it is something that we can't forget. And so stepping into that and our own abilities to connect and be human, I love watching Troy continue to wake up to this and again get back to his true natural self. I mean, just some things like he's taking his first flight on an airplane in like 30 years. In the next couple of weeks, we're actually meeting for a company trip down in Cancun, and it's his first time on an airplane in 30 years, and it's his first time seeing the ocean. Right. I also forget that not everybody has been to the beach or has seen the ocean. I mean, I'm from the islands, right? I'm from the Philippines. The ocean is normal, and here in North Carolina, it's only growing up, it was only a few hours drive away. So I take it for granted that there are people here in the U.S., especially that live in the middle of the country, that are landlocked, and some may have never seen the ocean. So I mean, it's just a tremendous period of discovery and growth for Troy right now. And I like I said, I couldn't be more proud. I couldn't be more excited for him, for the growth that's happening in his life. And so that's why I wanted to give him a shout out this week. So Troy, if you're listening out there, my friend, I am so excited for you. I am so proud of you. And that's why I wanted to give this week's shout out to you. All right. So if you have anybody that you want to celebrate and give a shout out to, let me know. I would love to read your shout out here on the show, so that special person can be celebrated, right? Not just you and them, but now that we have an opportunity to celebrate everybody on this platform, so that we can all celebrate together. So if there's anybody that you want to shine the light on, please let me know. You can either send the message to my email. It's info@pathofthejedi.com. Put shout out in the subject heading so that I know it's a shout out, or you can can, if you want to do even one step, take it one step further, you can record an MP3, right? Just record an MP3 on your phone, leave the special message that you want to record and that you want to leave for that special someone, and send it to my email. Again, you can send it to the same email, info@pathofthejedi.com, and put shout out in the subject heading. I'll either play your MP3 on the show on a future episode, or I'll read your message on the shout out section of the show. Again, I think it's really, really important. I love shining the light and celebrating people, because I mean, why not, right? Why not? So that's it. That's going to do it for the show. Again, we're going to be talking about the Bad Batch, and I promise I'll get my shit together. Excuse my language. I'll get my stuff more together for the next coming episodes. But we're going to be talking about Bad Batch season 2 in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll jump into the Mandalorian season 3. Exciting stuff. So we'll catch you next week. Until then, be well, be safe, and may the Force be with you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited, and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.